was at the same time a kind of managerial approach, because Soviet criminologists were interesting, in some way to control situation, for example, in the field like juvenile delinquents. So it was in Soviet terminology, it's called criminality of juveniles. So, or for example, it was again very important for this kind of research was elements, for example, of economic crime against so-called socialist property. It's again, it's very specific element for very much related to this kind of criminology. And at the same time, it was very separate, very idealized and very separate part of criminology. I can call it that it's completely science. On the one hand, it was a very research. But and analysis of, for example, criminal statistic, but a criminal statistic was completely unreliable, because it was just oriented in Marxist dogma that tomorrow will be better than today, and and of course a crime should be reduced year by year. So some kind of crime just was not recorded. For example, kind of crime related to drug users, because because Soviet people do not can't use, for example, drugs. yeah. But again, it was a very strange big picture of the criminological studies. I remember when I was a young scholar. And my first article, first research, was in, I believe, in 1980. So it was related to special distribution of crime. So and my colleagues and I just decided how we can get reliable data, because all data actually was spoiled. And suddenly we get data from Latvia, from our colleagues from Latvia, because Minister of Interior, and who was responsible for criminal statistics, decided before leaving his position to allow to record all all crimes in Latvia. It was scandal. It was this statistic was very I don't remember, but it was not allowed even to use publicly. But in Lithuania we had opportunity to get the statistics, and my first research was based on more or less reliable data about distribution of of crime in Latvia, not in Lithuania. In Lithuania it was still under the strange control, and actually it was a kind of secret for society. It was fake statistics, but at the same time, it's even fake statistic was not allowed for public discussion. So it's just a short presentation what we have in Soviet Union. But again, in Soviet Union we have different stage, because it was, for example, one stage with repression, with political repression, so-called Stalinist period, and again it was repression against Lithuanians. I just want to remember you that about 100,000 Lithuanians were just sent to Siberia, but just for nothing, just as a potential enemies for the socialistic states. So, but at the same time, as closer to the end of Soviet Union, the ability to do more or less independent research was broader. And another issue, what is important, that actually again due to the ideological position of Soviet authorities. So it was prohibited to use Western literature. Actually, Western literature was also prohibited. There was no possible to get free access. So usually, for example, Soviet criminologists can learn about the development of criminology in Europe, for example, or in North America, or in Australia, it comes through very strong filter of ideological filter, or even just not mentioned at all. So it's what's happened. But nevertheless, closer to the end of Soviet Union, it was more freedom, at least, to get this access through our colleagues, for example, and we can just were able to do more or less independent research. And it's again, it's in 80s. It was possible to create an alternative to Soviet criminology network in the Baltic countries. It was so-called Baltic Seminar. It still exists, by the way, and you are welcome to come. Marcelo, you probably remember I mentioned this seminar. Yeah. The first seminar happened in 1985, so in Estonia. And it was first platform for free discussion of criminological issues, and it's at the same time it was very encouraging to develop absolutely different, not related to Marxist dogma criminological theories. So it was a beginning. After in the 90s, as probably you know, we proclaimed independence. It's a re-established independence from Soviet Union. Actually, construction paradigm it not means a critical paradigm, because it could be evidence-based paradigm as well. So it's also constructed, but by different methods. Yeah. So it's again for me, and just why again I'm going to my field of philosophy of criminology, because I just tried to answer your questions. What kind of paradigm and what because in social science, differently than in natural science, you have coexisting paradigms. In natural science, for example, if you move from, for example, geocentric to heliocentric paradigm, it's okay. You never back, at least on scientific discourse back. But in criminology and other social science, you can just really coexist. So for me, at least, the classical paradigm still exists in the field. If, for example, if you look at crime, first of all, from the point of view of criminal law. So you take it uncritically, and you're more interesting, in analyzing. For example, it could be even simple statistic, for example. But it's again, you speak about crime as coming from criminal codes, from description, what does mean crime, and so on. You go, for example, for the cases, criminal cases in this case, to analysis, and it's paradigm exists, and it's let's say it's very noble paradigm for me. Another one, it's if you go with research, usually using, for example, it's quantitative criminology, for example. It's clear grounds this positivistic paradigm, and again, I also could use criminological use, and a lot of research. And again, if you look, for example, on contemporary awards in best article, so in European Journal of Criminology, a lot of articles comes in this from this paradigm. And critical, or maybe not critical, this constructionist paradigm, it's a different. It could work together with this paradigm, because sometimes you come back again to classical paradigm, because you redress and you describe crime from new point of view, how it's created, how it's in different stage of creation of constructing of crime. You're faced with different elements, for example, because that comes from previous discourse. And if we speak about this paradigm, again, previous paradigm, Soviet paradigm, well, despite of this ideological aspect, it was more oriented, nevertheless, in the positivistic paradigm, because it was, let's say, more managerial aspect, because it's what actually we learn from positivistic paradigm. If for example you can fix factors that make an impact on crime, okay, you can control it. So controlling factors, you can control the issue. So, and if, for example, if you want to control, and if, for example, and usually government interesting in crime control and reducing crime and so on, so they inevitably need to get some data, some figures that actually could be elements of criminal justice policy for controlling and managing, this crime situation in society. So it's again this paradigm was in Soviet Union, and I believe it's still continuing right now. But again, what if we speak right now, what's happened with Lithuania? So yes, it was because criminology was developed mostly before in legal department. Of course, this first paradigm should be dominated. If, for example, I speak about my university and, for example, team which I am working, so probably we more oriented in critical aspect or constructionist paradigm. I don't want to call myself critical because even my second criminological teacher, Luke Hulsman, he is wasn't critical. he is abolitionist. So, but again, critical criminologists are usually affiliated also with kind of ideological elements, with so-called political economics of crime and this Marxist approach. So probably it's not so easy to be Marxist in post-Marxist society.
That's a very interesting topic, because we discussed this also with Jerzy Sarnecki, who escaped from Poland, and people were saying to him, "Why do you leave the communist paradise to come here to this rotten Western society?" So, how do you feel about that? About the fact that many of these critical criminologists, not all of them, but some were Marxists and some were imagining a perfect society. You lived in this society. When you were confronted to this reality, how did you feel about it?
No, my feeling not good. No, I can of course tell you long stories about this paradise, about this perfect work. But probably you can get some trauma that actually after just just construct your reaction to the society. My first trauma was in my childhood when my parents sent me to buy bread to the shop. And it was the period when because of some kind of communist experiment in agriculture, the bread just disappeared. So we even have a joke. Person come into the shop and say, "Oh, and what we do not have here? Oh, we nothing have here." So it's but you can imagine a young boy of the age of 7 or 8 that want to play football, right? But instead of this, he has to stand in the line for 2 or 3 hours. So just for nothing. and it's a shortage of of goods in society. Actually it's just follow all citizens. But okay, it's okay. We can look critically on this case. Okay, might be it's consumerism, let's say. But another issue was that when I started to work, my PhD was first PhD was in philosophy, and it was about Western philosophy. And I realized that I had no access to book. So, and I need to get permission for some guys that I'm okay person for reading these books. So it was strange, and alongside it was a feeling that that you live in lying society. Lying society. Soviet society, it was lying society. If you want to read something, you have to access to open sources. It was hard. Okay, I have access. Okay, I was lucky. I could read even Western magazines in this very specific place. In library, it was very specific place where you was allowed to read secret documents. Secret documents, for example, was a magazine Time.
Wow.
So something like New York Times. Of
Then
course, yeah. Okay.
Then you need some knowledge of English and
Yes, but yeah, of course. But okay, I graduated university with and one of my course was English. So nevertheless, so in foreign language it was not prohibited. Thanks for God. So the level, of course, of teaching of English language was very specific. So I learned my English not in Lithuania but in Norway. So I have a very good teacher in English during my visit to Oslo University. So, but coming back to this issue, okay, but it's again, it's there. If we start to speak about Soviet life, we speak between joke and sorrow. So it's it's combination because on the one side you just can understand how it's possible, but at the same time it's only one normal reaction on your experience. It was just irony and might be loud laugh. But again, I don't want to say that completely all Soviet life it was in the dark or it was no light and so on. No, it's a life. It's human life, and socialization happened. Some human contact, some ability to talk. But I was lacking because of fact that from my studies at the university around me was a free-minded person, and especially in philosophy we have a private circle where we can read Western literature, Western philosophy. So we educated in different way. So it's very strange opposition. It's not open opposition, not the opposition when you propose freely your ideas, but it's hidden. You have this closed circle, and you just in this closed circle you can develop some ideas, and some ideas was not new for us after independence comes. So it was our privilege maybe, but again in Soviet time. This paradise produced a very specific negative reaction. First of all, to politics, to economics. So, and it's nothing. I was actively participated in this political life, and together with my friends, we create even political party. It was first liberal. It was first liberal party. I was deputy chairperson of this party, Lithuania Liberal Union. So okay, we participated in drafting some basic documents of independent Lithuania. For example, citizenship law that actually was based for election of independent parliament and so on. So it's again, it was some kind of activities that, but what I want to say is that at least for Sakal, where I come from, it was more or less clear that plan economics it's impossible. At least we perfectly understood the ideas of Hayek that plan economic is out to serve them. So, and might be Austrian economic school was much more closer to us than Marxist politeconomic. So again, lately I saw very interesting research about so-called anti-communist or anti-socialist mentality of former socialist countries.
Mm-hmm.
It's much bigger, and I remember that my first contacts with my colleagues in US, for example, or even in Europe, academic. I mean, from academic circles was very strange because they look at us with kind of irony. And again, what I just to try to answer your question, reflecting what I can say. It's for my generation.
Yeah, let's go with your generation. Your generation.
Of financial years.
No, your generation. What you lived. Even you can make the distinction between the first period and the second one, after the independence.
Yeah, but again, you know, if it's from the first sight, it's look like easy question to say what happened with old generation. For my generation, I belong to the elder generation. Again, my answer would be okay because it's bonus. It will be not straight. a bit with prehistory. I remember I was invited in one TV show. It's also about crime situation, and one of the participants, very famous person in Lithuania, she was already in pension. Say crime situation in Lithuania terrible. So terrible that I can get out from my house to carry garbage. And I was a bit younger than she, and I ironically asked her, "What's wrong with you? Why?" She looked at me with surprise. "You didn't see TV news? You never read newspapers?" Yes, of course. I saw news and read newspaper because it's my field of my interest. But after I started to think about reality of this person, because we live in one reality of expert, but at the same time there are reality of ordinary person, and for ordinary person the crime is terrible and is growing. And even right now, for example, if you ask what's about crime level and if it's safe to live in Lithuania, say, oh no, look how terrible it is. But if you look at statistics, we say that statistics reduced drastically. For my understanding, okay, again, I just tried to combine these two realities. Okay, right now probably we did not see much TV sets because we live in different world. And what I fixed first of all, we live in different world. Before speaking about crime, I say we live in different world. That's it. And in this different world, of course, we have to behave differently, and we have to evaluate, because crime all the times it's a questions about safety. And because there are no crime as such, there are different kinds of crime. And if we speak professionally, and in different kind of crime, we have different risk to be victims of this crime, and it's very important. From this point of view, you go in different situation. You have to go with statistics and say, okay, look, statistics could dramatically change. reducing of violent crimes, reducing of homicides. For example, homicides, let's say 20 years ago, was huge. It was about 10% per 1,100 population. It was highest level of homicide in Europe. Right now it's reduced. I remember it was about 510, if I remember, in 1995. Right now it's about 73 or something like that. It's dramatically changed, of course. We faced with problems that the structure of crime differ. But again, in Soviet time, for example, there were no reliable statistics. It was only rumors. So, and probably nobody expected that, for example, so-called crime related to property or property crimes or economic crimes, just should occupy it from 60 or 80% of all type of crimes that are registered by official statistics. So it was obvious. It was obvious that at least in public discourse and political discourse, this type of crime became more visible. At the same time, again, life became more safe, but at the same time, it became more tricky because people come in this new environment again that connected with so-called e-society. We're living in a society, in virtual society, or let's say society that actually just merged reality with virtuality. And again, it's hybrid society, yes. But hybrid society presupposes that you're in trouble, in dangers, and sometimes you even can understand to what extent you're in dangers. For example, even using these facilities like we are doing right now. So, and of course, and statistically and practically, we see a concern about this type of crime. This crime, at least in my youth, was probably not only invisible, but rather it was a kind of anecdotal crime. For example, I remember in my youth, it was first a so-called, it's not an online crime, but it was, because internet still not existed, but it was electronic crime, using computers for just for fabrication of financial report, and using these elements to taking extra monies. It was even in Soviet time. So, but it was just curious. But it's right now became a mainstream, more and more mainstream. So probably it's again, I believe that from this point of view, we can have also hybrid attitude to crime. We use this understanding of crime first of all from statistics, but statistics usually refer to institutional statistics, to how institution works, to what extent they just could take these cases for recording and for investigating and for managing.
Thank you for following Lieven and Marcelo's Criminology podcast, a podcast hosted by Marcelo Aebi from the University of Lausanne, Switzerland, and Lieven Pauwels from Ghent University, Belgium. We aim to draw a map of the state of criminology across Europe through the words of contemporary criminologists. How is criminology defined and taught? Which are the main lines of research? Which are the main schools of thought in each country? These and many other questions are answered here by fellow researchers who share their vision on the development of criminology in their countries from its beginnings to the second decade of the 21st century. If you want to know and compare their stories, stay tuned. This podcast is edited by Eduardo Coco from the University of Lausanne. Our theme song is Seagull's Night, Noche de Gaviotas, composed by Gustavo Cantero, arranged by Tato Germano, and played by Tato and Gustavo with the voices of Sasha Conte and Alejandro Turco Guyot. Cheers, and see you soon.